in the first quarter of the next financial year.
Rahul, let me get you to react to the comments that the sluggish bureaucracy is actually impeding the flow of FDI inflows. Now, this has been a cause of concern even as far as your ministry is concerned. Do you at least agree with this point that the economic survey has had to make?
You're asking me to agree that I am part of a sluggish bureaucracy? I disagree.
But Mr. Khullar, even your ministry has been writing to the Ministry of Environment, for instance, to speed up the process of approvals and clearances, because that clearly is impacting FDI flows, is it not?
Yeah, but that is not a sluggish bureaucracy in the Ministry of Commerce.
So what would you like the government to actually do to stem the decline that we've seen in foreign direct investment?
FDI flows are down this year. The reasons for that are not because of a sluggish bureaucracy or because somebody in India screwed things up. Wake up, smell the coffee. People are stockpiling cash in Europe and in the US. Corporations are sitting on piles and piles of cash and not investing it, neither in their own economies nor overseas. There's a pure precautionary motive to hold that cash. You know that and I know that. The global economic environment is as fragile as it was last year, and things are not looking good. So that's why capital flows have, in a sense, slowed down. Yes, there is a problem on our side at the receiving end in the sense that certain policy decisions have to be taken. Those policy decisions will be taken in due course, but I think to attribute the slowdown of foreign direct investment to that is plain silly.
Alright, so don't blame the bureaucracy. You think that's being silly. Let me go across to the Economist on the panel, Shanto, Ghosh. Let me get your reaction to what you've heard the Chief Economic Advisor say in the Economic Survey. A fairly aggressive growth target of between 8.75 to 9.25%. Speaking about fiscal consolidation, also speaking about taming the inflation monster. But the opinion is that how do you actually align that kind of growth rate with the fact that you're battling high inflation and you're also trying to get back on the path of fiscal consolidation?
Right, Shereen, I think it is important to recognize that when we are talking about high growth, as Professor Basu was saying a few minutes ago, we have to allow for a slightly higher level of inflation. So I think if we are going to have, anywhere from 8.75 to 9.25% growth, I think we cannot imagine that we are going to be living in the days of 3.5% inflation. Now, that being said, I do also believe that there are, serious steps that one should be taking to control the inflation and making sure that it doesn't become generalized. And I think the government is on top of things. They are doing the right kind of moves. Honestly, I would agree with what Mr. Godrej was saying, that I think the inflation problem is going to go away very soon. We already have seen a decline in the general level of inflation, and I expect that decline to continue in the months to come. So I think, while we have to deal with perhaps, in the medium term, an inflation level of around 5%, I don't see that to be a serious problem if we can maintain the growth rate of 9%.
A quick word, Shanto, then on fiscal consolidation, because the survey talks about that. It's pegged fiscal deficit for FY11 at 4.8%, better than the government projections. But, a lot of questions on whether this is really a camouflaged number and what this is really going to mean in terms of absolute government borrowings.
Yes, and I think that's a very important point, because when we talk about the fiscal deficit, we have to look at the big picture. So you have the central government deficit, which is at 4.8%. You have the state deficit, which is at 2.5%, and then you have the deficit coming from this off-balance sheet items. So cumulatively, we are talking about a deficit of around 10%. In addition to that, the government this year, you have to recognize, has realized this windfall gain from the auctioning of the 3G spectrum, from the BWA auctioning, and that has added to an unprecedented inflow that would have added to the lowering of the fiscal deficit. Now, we are not going to have that next year. In addition to that, we are going to see an increase in the outlay for a lot of these, the NREGA. We are going to see an increase in the subsidy bill. So I still don't know. We have to, I guess, wait for the budget and see what the finance minister reveals in terms of the fiscal map, how we are going to get to the 13th Finance Commission targets. But I actually see a gap. I don't know how this fiscal deficit is going to be managed in the years to come. The only thing I can predict is that there's going to be a huge focus on tax administration. They're going to focus on increasing the tax revenues, and that's going to again go to this climate of making the tax climate very uncertain. And I must tell you that I do believe that one of the reasons for the fall in FDI is bureaucracy, and secondly, the uncertain tax climate. We deal with our clients and they keep telling us that.
Right. Well, that's something Mr. Khullar is not going to agree to, that bureaucracy or sluggish bureaucracy is impeding FDI flows. But Mr. Godrej, back to you now. What to your mind was really the highlight as far as the survey was concerned? Several positive prescriptions on agriculture, retail reform, so on and so forth. A lot of those pending demands from industry. But outside of that, what was the big highlight for you? And do you think this is now going to be more aligned to what the budget is going to put out?
Well, I was very favorably impressed with the GDP growth figures they indicated for 11-12. I think they clearly feel that GDP growth will be higher. That means clearly their planning in terms of the budget and other policies is for more rapid economic growth, which I think was the main positive factor taken out from the economic survey. And I do hope, I think the most important thing I'm hoping for is a very strong statement on GST implementation. Of course, I understand it's not part of the budget. The other thing I think he can do, and which can be very helpful, is to make an announcement that all surcharges on direct taxes as well as indirect taxes, we still have surcharges on import duty, etc., should be done away with. I think that will create the stimulus for faster growth, and I personally feel could end up him collecting even more taxes.
All right, Rahul Khullar, back to you. Since you don't really agree with very much that the survey is put out, do you also think that the survey is getting carried away with the kind of growth projections that have been made of between 8.75 to 9.25%, given the kind of external environment that we're faced with?
Well, let me put it this way. I would have preferred a slightly more conservative lower bound. I'm not so gung-ho about 8.75. That said, let me say why. I think that it's not that the external environment is what is holding up a problem. Understand, domestically we will have some amount of problems arising both from inflation and interest rate risks, which you in Mumbai know better about than I do. Second, the base growth in the range of 7 to 8% is reasonably guaranteed, provided we get a good agriculture, and primarily because of the engine of domestic demand. So I think that's the basis for still being optimistic about the growth rate and saying it will be above 8%. Once you cross 8%, you are in very tricky territory. Where you land up, I can't say.
All right, gentlemen, I'm afraid we've run out of time. We'll have to leave it there. Rahul Khullar, Adi Godrej, Shanto, Ghosh, many thanks for joining us here on India Business Hour. Well, that was a discussion on the highlights of the economic survey.